What looks complicated to do, but is actually quite easy. Up your entire life. Using a PC. I've worked in a training capacity before, and I found that most people's problems are not the difficulty, but rather being intimidated and feeling overwhelmed. Especially if you're a bit older and are just now sitting down to learn how to use one. Much like many things, if you take it slow, it's not bad. Once you get the hang of things, it seems silly to have stressed out about it. Watch this video until the end for good luck. Copying posts that reached top of the month, but slightly changing the question to get gold. Basic sewing. Things like simple hemming, sewing buttons are easy to learn and will make your life easier. If you keep learning, it's amazing to be able to fit your own clothes. Baking. Can you follow a recipe? Can you measure? Can you time things with a clock? Then you can bake. Not saying it doesn't take a tremendous amount of skill to become a great baker, but to make things like cookies or cakes that aren't from a mix, it's not that complicated, yet everyone is amazed when you do it. Crochet. It's just pulling loops through other loops in various combinations. Knitting too. It's just one stitch, and that stitch backwards. If you can do that, you can make almost any knitting piece. Keeping track of stitches or rows, following complex patterns, making clothes that fit, and adding embellishments like cabling can be a bit more tricky. But you can do all sorts of cool effects with just knit and purl. It's neat as well to find yourself getting quicker and quicker at completing rows. Solving a Rubik's Cube. I don't know who gave me my first 3x3 cube, but I remember being in the 6th grade watching YouTube videos on how to solve them. Once I understood how the algorithms worked, it was just a matter of memorizing them. Once you memorize them, it's game over. I remember showing all my friends how I could solve it with my eyes closed. They were shocked, as were my parents. The more impressed they became, the more worried I was that they would find out how easy it was. Lol. Middle school was fun. Replacing parts on modern appliances such as dishwashers and clothes washers. 90% of them are plug and play. If you know what the problem is, you can figure out what part you need from the net, order it online, and replace it yourself with minimal effort. Save yourself hundreds of dollars and feel like a boss. When I was young, I tried to spin a ball on my finger and couldn't do it. So I tried again and again, and within an hour I pretty much figured it out. Looks complicated but is easy. Rubik's Cube. Minesweeper. Disassembling firearms. Easy to do, but hard to learn. Flying. Some types of writing. Playing a music instrument. Handyman work. You obviously need some skill, but with some help of YouTube, some tools and the internet, you can save hundreds in-house stuff that doesn't necessarily require a professional to do it. Being there for someone. Most people always know that one person who always knows exactly what to say to cheer someone up or help someone through a tough time, and you probably wonder, man, how do they do that so easily? It's really not hard. Just listening and honestly and openly talking to someone can do wonders. You'd be amazed how much you can actually help. Building a PC. It's literally putting things where they fit. People who aren't into tech stuff, so most likely no one that uses Reddit, think that they're gonna but stuff in the wrong way and break it, but you'll notice you're doing it wrong because it just doesn't fit. Martial arts. Seems impossible at first. Once you get the basics down, it really comes down to consistency and repetition. If you're willing to put the time in, you can obtain a black belt. Anything involving video game mapping or 3D animation. In about under a dozen YouTube tutorials that simply tell you how to use the user interface of whatever program you're using. You can basically learn how to use it. Problem is, it's very time consuming to do these things if you care at all about detail. In 3D animation, for example, you can spend 16 hours on a project only to have 10 seconds of animation done, or 10 rooms of a map properly complete. But being time consuming and even seriously boring past hour 8 or so is not exactly the same thing as being hard. I think anyone's capable of doing it if they dedicate enough time to their projects. Organization. So many times I looked at all the shit I had and didn't know where to even start or where to put it. but once I just took everything out so that I organized by scratch and changed my mincer, it was surprisingly easy and felt amazing. Dancing. A lot of people overthink what they're doing or not just fully express themselves, no matter how awkward or bad they think they're dancing. Being a lawyer. It's 99.99% admin and filing stuff. If you've ever watched an office clerk work, you're basically a lawyer. Obviously I'm not talking about advocates who go to court. There's some thinking on your feet that happens there, but even then, less than what shows make you think. Mostly just boring document discovery, etc. The big surprise reveals you often see in legal dramas are literally illegal to do in court. Also approaching the bench when not asked by the judge, etc. Mostly a tedious, mundane job, and most lawyers I know are terrified of becoming obsolete because, well, they already kind of are. Taking apart, rebuilding and or modifying a car or truck engine. I've been in 2 training courses, one for Scania and one for car engines. One of the things people first think usually is where to start, but once you get the flow, it's an easy task. Quilting. Making a quilt is so freaking easy and looks incredible. If you can sew a straight line, you can make a quilt. It's so satisfying too, and while it is in fact a bit time consuming, if you have the patience to see it through, it's a fantastic gift. The bigger your quilt is, the greater the challenge, but that's just because you have a lot of fabric to handle, not because it goes up in difficulty. Difficulty comes from piecing odd angles together more than anything else. Mildly relevant, but I have to share this. Nuclear reactors are just steam engines. The heat energy from nuclear fusion boils water. The pressurized steam then passes through a turbine. It is that simple. Unlike most people tend to believe, there is no complicated science behind the extraction of energy. Sharpening a knife with a whetstone. Yeah, it takes a little bit of finesse to do, but if you passed middle school geometry and remember a basic understanding of what a right angle is and how to cut that in half, you'll have sharp knives again in no time. The game of rugby. It looks really complicated on TV, but the general rules and gameplay is pretty intuitive and straightforward. Some of the rules can be a bit complicated and take a while to learn, but that's what the ref is for, and you learn as you go. When I played for American teams growing up, usually 80-90% of the team was first timers, and then when I coached in college it was the same deal. You can make someone a really decent rugby player in just a few weeks, especially if they're fit and not scared of the contact. Bowling properly. The technical side of bowling becomes shrouded in terms like oil patterns, hook patterns, Brooklyns, but when you break it down, you just gotta reach the foul line at the same time as your ball. Hand sewing. You cut a long piece of string, tie a knot in one end, thread it through the needle, then sew at the edge of whatever it is needs sewing. It just takes patience. I've kinda realized lately that almost everything is like this. Things that seem complicated are usually just made up of many very simple things put together. Using Photoshop. There's so much in the program that never gets used, so it's super overwhelming to beginners. Investing money in the market and getting a return takes a couple minutes to open a brokerage account, then slowly add more and more money into 2 ETFs, one for the entire stock market and one for the entire bond market. People like to overcomplicate it, but the simpler the better. Drawing. No one believes me when I say that, like most anything, everyone sucks at first, and you just have to put in the time and practice to get better. Sure, some people are more artistically inclined and will be more motivated to learn, or will pick up skills quicker, but everything just comes down to practice. There is no natural talent. Cooking. As a kid I once was terrified with burning my food, which was why every time my mom wanted to teach me how to cook, I always said no. Fast forward to being in college, I was forced to learn how to make my own meals. I had friends show me the kitchen basics and watched YouTube for some recipes, and turns out it was actually really enjoyable and pretty easy. In fact, all you had to do was just know the cooking times of what you're cooking to get an estimate of when it's done, and just follow what the experts in YouTube say about what to look out for. Now I got the hang of cooking that I realized I can use all my senses. to cook a good meal, looking at coloration of the food, using a fork to know I got the right texture, smelling and tasting the food, if it's what I wanted the dish to be like, and using my hearing to know if it's done frying. Hacking. A lot of people think of the movies as soon as you say that word, hacking into the mainframe with Matrix text all over the screen. Realistically, it's more social engineering and getting information out of people that you can use to recover an account. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Let us know your thoughts on this topic. See you soon.